Good morning. I am very pleased to meet you in this virtual meeting room. My name is Sibylla Martinelli, and you can see my picture in the upper right corner of your screen. I am one of the 2 Swiss national contact points for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. Together with my colleague Isabel Spüler, I am in charge of answering your every question concerning the individual fellowships, but also concerning other Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, of course. Please note that the questions you submit via the chat function during this webinar can only be answered at the very end of the presentation. If you prefer sending us your questions via email, please feel free to use our generic email address indicated here on this page. The presentation will be recorded and uploaded on our YouTube channel. You will receive a follow-up email next week. This mail will contain the presentation in PDF format and also the link to the recorded webinar. And here's a last important fact before we start looking at the individual fellowships. There are absolutely no restrictions on participation for Swiss researchers and institutions whatsoever, because from 1st January 2017 onward, Switzerland has been fully associated to Horizon 2020. Let me give you my main message on the individual fellowships right away. The individual fellowships are all about genuine mobility and career development of excellent researchers. They got their name from a most excellent researcher who was also genuinely mobile, and she was convinced that science and scientific training should be international, from Marie Curie. You are interested in the individual fellowship, and we are going to have a closer look at those today, in the next hour. But to give you a more complete picture, there are in total 4 of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, all offering attractive knowledge exchange opportunities through mobility across borders as well as sectors. In general, the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions aim to support the career development and training of researchers in all scientific disciplines through international and intersectoral mobility. The aim to make Europe an attractive location for the world's best researchers and raise the level of excellence in Europe's science base is common to all of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. And the overall objective is to prevent the so-called brain drain away from Europe. So all of the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions provide funding for excellent researchers, encourage mobility across borders and sectors, and foster collaboration among individuals and institutions. They do so with a budget of roughly €6 billion for the 7 years of Horizon 2020. If you want to know more about the other actions apart from the individual fellowships, I would like to invite you to check on the official MSCA website indicated on this slide. So the Marie Skłodowska-Curie individual fellowships are individual transnational fellowships awarded to the best or most promising researchers. They are excellent opportunities for postdoctoral researchers to boost their careers by going abroad for new learning opportunities and like this add some sparkle to their CVs. The goal of the individual fellowships is to enhance the creative and innovative potential of the researchers who wish to diversify their individual competence in terms of skill acquisition, through advanced training, and also through international and intersectoral mobility. So individual fellowships provide opportunities to acquire and transfer new knowledge and to work on research and innovation in Europe and beyond. And with this strong focus on training of the researchers as well as on their career development, the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Individual Fellowship is not just a regular research project. Its basis is, of course, an excellent research project, and this should be carried out at the most appropriate host institution under the supervision of a suitable supervisor. In addition to that, excellent training should be provided. Research training on the one hand, and also training in transferable skills on the other hand. This all should benefit the researcher's career maximally. So these fellowships will be awarded to the most promising researchers of any nationality who want to benefit from advanced training and working on a research project abroad. The experienced researcher, according to the EU, must be, at the date of the call deadline, in possession of a doctoral degree or have at least 4 years of full-time equivalent research experience to be eligible for the individual fellowships. Full-time equivalent research experience is measured from the date when a researcher obtained the degree entitling him or her to embark on a doctorate. Host organizations should be institutions active in research and training. They should be located in an EU member state or associated country, and they can be from the academic or the non-academic sector. The academic sector refers to public or private higher education establishments awarding academic degrees, or also public or private non-profit research institutes whose primary mission is to pursue research, and also international European interest organizations. And the non-academic sector refers to entities not included in the academic sector and fulfilling the requirements of the Horizon 2020 rules for participation regulation. The European Commission considers mobility between organizations to be an asset for the personal and also the career development of researchers. Mobility strengthens intersectoral collaboration and promotes the acquisition of new skills and knowledge, thereby contributing to increased research creativity, efficacy, and performance. The mobility of the researcher to another country is an eligibility criterion for receiving Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions funding. So there is the so-called mobility rule with which researchers should comply in order to be eligible. It says that the researcher should not have resided or carried out the main activity in the country of the future host for more than 12 months in the 3 years prior to the relevant deadline for submission of proposals, which will be this year, the 11th September. The Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions mobility rule does not necessarily relate to the location stated in the current or previous employment contract of the researcher, but it is the actual location of residence that is taken into account, not the country of legal residence. The two determining elements are so the actual place of residence and the place of main activity. For certain types of fellowships, the mobility rule is adapted slightly. I will come to that later. The individual fellowships, as all the other Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions, have a bottom-up approach, meaning research fields are chosen freely by the applicants. All domains of research and technological development are eligible for funding. On an institutional level, a good reason to apply for an individual fellowship is that institutions can host researchers working on projects fully funded by the EU. And with the help of an individual fellowship, a researcher can diversify his or her competences and acquire new skills through advanced training and mobility. There are two types of individual fellowships. There's the European Fellowship with its standard fellowship, with the career restart, the reintegration, and the society and enterprise panel. And then there is also the Global Fellowship. European fellowships are for fellows coming to or moving within Europe. And the Global Fellowships, on the other hand, is for fellows from Europe going abroad to a third country for 1 to 2 years and returning on a mandatory 1-year stay at the European host institution, the so-called return host. For the European Fellowship, a researcher applies jointly with a host institution for funding of a research project. The host institution is located in a member state, in a European member state, or in an associated country. The host recruits the researcher and also appoints a supervisor. The standard European fellowships are divided into 8 scientific areas. The Career Restart, the Reintegration and the Society Enterprise panel, however, are multidisciplinary. So for the standard European fellowship, the 8 scientific areas are the following: chemistry, social sciences and humanities, economic sciences, information science and engineering, environment and geosciences, life sciences, mathematics and physics. The standard mobility rule applies, so researchers should not have spent more than 1 year in the country of their future host prior to the call deadline, which will be on 11th September this year. These standard European fellowships are for researchers of any nationality. The Career Restart panel is a multidisciplinary panel of the European fellowships which provides financial support to individual researchers who wish to resume research in Europe after a career break, for example, after parental leave or after working outside research for a while. The researcher must have had a career break in research, meaning they were not active in research for a continuous period of at least 12 months within the 18 months immediately prior to the deadline for submission of proposals. So again, 11th September this year. And active in research means being employed or holding a scholarship in research. Parental leaves and unpaid leaves of absence will not be counted as periods of active engagement in research, even if a formal employment relationship exists during these periods. Publication activities or mere association to a university are not taken into account either. Furthermore, the researcher must move or have moved from any country to the member state or associated country where the hosting institution will be located. And a career restart fellowship can last up to 36 months. This was introduced 2 years ago. The reintegration panel is a multidisciplinary panel of the European fellowships as well, and it is dedicated to researchers who wish to return and reintegrate in a longer-term research position in Europe. To be eligible for this reintegration panel, the researcher must be a national or long-term resident of a member state or associated country. Long-term residence means a period of legal and continuous residence within one or more EU member states or associated countries of at least 5 consecutive years. And the researcher must move or have moved directly from a third country to the member state or associated country where the future host institution will be located. Then there is the Society and Enterprise panel, which is a multidisciplinary panel of the European fellowships, and it is dedicated to career opportunities for researchers seeking to work on research and innovation project in an organization from the non-academic sector. The host institution must be an entity from the non-academic sector, and any entities with a capital or legal link must also be from the non-academic sector. This is applied very strictly. Applicants should apply to the society and enterprise panels only if they are certain about the non-academic status. Otherwise, all the other panels and scientific areas of the Standard European Fellowship are open also for researchers who want to go to a non-academic institution. In the Society and Enterprise panel, the researcher may be of any nationality as well, and there are no age restrictions that apply. However, the Society and Enterprise Mobility Rule applies, meaning that the researcher must move or have moved from any country to the member state or associated country where the future host is located, and should not have spent more than 36 months in the 5 years prior to the call deadline in the country of the future host institution. This panel was introduced in 2016. Now we come to the Global Fellowship. They are based on an outgoing phase during which the researcher undertakes mobility to a partner organization in a third country for a period of between 12 and 24 months. And this is followed by a mandatory 12-month return period to the beneficiary, to the host institution located in the EU member state or associated country. The researcher applies jointly with a host organization located in an EU member state or associated country for a research project. As I mentioned, this research project has an initial outgoing phase in a partner organization to a partner organization in a third country. The hosting organization in the EU member state or associated country signs the grant agreement and recruits the researcher and also appoints the supervisor. The partner organization nominates a supervisor for the researcher and provides a letter of commitment. Partner organizations, however, do not sign grant agreements and they do not recruit the researcher and not claim costs directly from the EU. The researcher cannot have resided or carried out his or her main activity in the country of the third country partner organization where the outgoing phase is going to take place for more than 12 months in the 3 years prior to the call deadline. So the mobility rule applies to the outgoing phase of the fellowship. And also the global fellowships are divided into 8 scientific areas. And there is new since last year the possibility to spend up to 3 months in the host institute of a EU member state or associated country before the actual outgoing phase. This was not possible before last year. The partner organization, as I mentioned, has to provide an up-to-date letter of commitment, which should be included in Part B of the proposal. This is to confirm their real and active participation in the proposed project, because this partner organization, as I mentioned, does not sign the grant agreement. During the implementation of the project, the researcher can be seconded outside the host organization to an organization in another member state or associated country. Secondments of the researcher to partner organizations are encouraged, but they should in any case be relevant, also feasible and beneficial for the researcher, and in line with the project objectives. Applicants should therefore consider carefully whether the research would be advanced by a secondment and whether it should take place in the academic or non-academic sector. In all cases, the secondment must be meaningful and appropriate to the type of fellowship and research field. Any secondment must be mentioned in the section Call-Specific Questions of Part A and be clearly specified in Section 5 of Part B of the proposal. In the partner organization where the secondment takes place, if the partner organization where the secondment takes place is not identified at the proposal stage, It is essential that Part B of the proposal contains as much information as possible on the sector, place, timing and duration, and its overall purpose. The maximum duration of secondments is defined according to the total duration of the fellowship. And the secondment phase can be a single period or can be divided into shorter mobility periods. It can take place at one or more organizations, and they can be located in the same country as the beneficiary or in another country. A secondment is allowed during any phase of the project and to any entity located in a member state or associated country. While secondments can take place within the same sector, this is eligible, intersectoral secondments are highly encouraged. The indicative budget is 294.49 million euro. 50 million euro for the global fellowships are distributed between the 8 scientific areas based on the number of eligible proposals received in each of these areas. 236.49 million are distributed between the panels of the European fellowships based on the number also of eligible proposals received in each of the panels. Except for the Society and Enterprise panel, for this panel 8 million euro are earmarked. The distribution of the indicative budget of the call will be proportional to the number of eligible proposals received in each panel, except where a specific budget for a multidisciplinary panel has been fixed in the call, like for the Society and Enterprise panel I just mentioned. It is important to note that there is a higher weighting for the proposals of the individual fellowship career restart panel and the reintegration panel. During the budget distribution, the career restart panel eligible proposals will have a weighting of 2 times the weighting of eligible proposals in other panels. For the reintegration panel, the weighting will be 1.5 times higher. The financial support for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie individual fellowship takes the form of a grant covering 100% of the project's eligible costs. These are not related to the real cost of the action, but are calculated exclusively based on the fixed units set out in the work program. The EU contribution will be automatically calculated from the information provided in Part A of the proposal using the rates and coefficients given in Tables 1 and 2 of the work program. It is crucial that the information given in Part A about the participating organizations and researchers is correct and up to date, and that it is identical to the information given in Part B. The EU covers costs related to the recruitment of the researcher, but also research, training and networking costs, as well as management and indirect costs. The maximum amount is fixed in the grant agreement. There are different cost categories. Basically, there are the researcher unit costs and the institutional unit costs. You see the researcher unit costs on the left side of the table and institutional unit costs on the right side of the table. Researcher unit costs are divided into living allowance, mobility allowance, and family allowance. The living allowance is the EU contribution to the gross salary costs of the researcher and amounts to 4,880 euro per month. It can only be used to this end. This amount is adjusted through the application of a country correction coefficient for the cost of living according to the country in which the beneficiary is located. For the outgoing phase of the global fellowship, the country correction coefficient of the third country partner organization will be applied. However, the adjusted amount will not change in case of secondments to a partner organization in another member state or associated country. The country correction coefficient for Switzerland is 1.212. The living allowance is a gross amount. The net salary results from deducting all compulsory social security contributions as well as direct taxes from the gross amounts. The host organization may pay a top-up to the recruited researcher in order to complement this contribution. In addition to the living allowance, a mobility allowance will be paid to the recruited researchers, amounting to €600 per month. Furthermore, a family allowance will be paid in case the researcher has family obligations. In this context, family is defined as persons linked to the researchers, either by marriage or by a relationship with equivalent status to a marriage, or as dependent children who are actually being maintained by the researcher. This family allowance amounts to €500 per month, and the family status of the researcher will be determined at the date of the deadline of the call, so 11 September 2019 for this year's call, and it will not be revised during the lifetime of the action of the project. Research training and networking costs amount to €800 per month and are managed by the beneficiary, by the hosting institution. They are to contribute to expenses related to costs for training and networking activities, for example. And these training and networking activities, they should contribute directly to the researcher's career development. Like, for example, participation in conferences or trips related to the work of the project, trainings, language courses, seminars, library records, publication costs, etc. And then there are costs for research expenses, costs for visa-related fees and travel expenses, and also additional costs arising from secondments, as for example travel costs or accommodation costs for optional secondments. The research training and networking unit costs should be used for the research, training and networking activities outlined in the proposal, and unused amounts can be used for other but action-related purposes. For example, to increase the salary of a researcher or to organize additional training activities. The management and indirect costs amount to €650 per month, and these are to be used for the management and indirect costs of the project. The unit cost for management and indirect costs should be used exclusively for the management of the action, but unused amounts may also be used for other project-related purposes. For example, to increase the salary of the researcher. So here's an example of a French researcher without family obligations who obtained his PhD in chemistry in France and who applies for a European Standard Fellowship jointly with a university in Germany for a 24-month fellowship. Part B provides for a secondment split in 2 periods of each 2 months at an industrial partner in Ireland. Okay. You can see here that the living allowance is multiplied with the number of months and the country correction coefficient for Germany, which is 0.97. Together with the mobility allowance, the researcher costs will sum up to €126,000, and the institutional costs will be €34,800. So in total, the EU will pay €162,806 for this fellowship of 2 years duration. No country correction coefficient will be applied for the 2 secondments stays. And here's another example of a married Chinese researcher who has a PhD in physics and was employed in research at a Polish university. The researcher applies for a global fellowship with a 24-month outgoing phase to a university in the US and a 12-month mandatory return period in Spain. For the outgoing phase of the global fellowship, the country correction coefficient of the third country partner organization will be applied. However, the adjusted amount will not change in case of secondments to a partner organization in a member state or associated country. So for this fellowship, the total costs will be €263,732, composed of €211,532 researcher costs and €52,200 institutional costs. Every individual fellowship proposal is composed of Part A and Part B. Part A contains administrative forms. Part B is the core part of the proposal. It contains the details of the proposed research and training activities, along with the practical arrangements planned to implement them. This part will be used by the independent experts to undertake their assessment. Each applicant must fill in the administrative forms in Part A for the proposal, which will be used in the evaluation and further processing of the proposal. Part A is an integral part of the proposal and has a number of mandatory fields, such as the name of the supervisor, the name of the researcher, etc. And any data provided in the proposal submission forms in Part A should correspond to the CV section in Part B. You will see that in a minute. This information will be used to verify eligibility. In Part B of the proposal, applicants must submit 2 separate PDF documents in the funding and tender portal, B1 and B2. The maximum total length for Part B1 is 10 pages. It should be composed of sections 1 to 3, so the excellence, impact, and implementation section of the project. Of the maximum 10 pages applied to sections 1 to 3, applicants are free to decide on the allocation of pages between the sections, but the overall page limit will be strictly applied. After the call deadline, excess pages will automatically be made invisible and will not be taken into consideration by the experts. So we advise to use the template of Part B, available as a Word version in the Funding and Tender Opportunities portal. I will show you later on where to get this template. A cover page or summary table shouldn't be included, as these would count towards the page limit. Part B2 must contain sections 4 to 7. CV is intrinsic to the evaluation of the whole proposal and is assessed throughout the 3 evaluation criteria by the expert evaluators. It should be ensured that the information provided in parts A and B is fully consistent. The CV should be limited to a maximum of 5 pages and should include the standard academic and research record. Then a list of all participating organizations, indicating the legal entity name, the department carrying out the work, and the supervisor should be provided in section 5. Applicants should demonstrate proactively in their proposal that they are aware of and will comply with ethical principles and applicable international, European, and national law. This will be done in section 6 of Part B2. And for global fellowships only, a letter of commitment of the partner organization hosting the outgoing phase in a third country must be included in Part B2 to ensure their real and active participation. Proposals are submitted in a single stage and evaluated in one step. The evaluation of proposals is carried out by the Research Executive Agency of the European Commission with the assistance of independent experts. The research executive agency staff ensure that the process is fair. Experts perform evaluations on a personal basis, not as representatives of their employer, their country, or any other entity. They are required to be independent, impartial, and objective. They sign an expert contract, including a declaration of confidentiality and absence of conflict of interest before beginning their work. And confidentiality rules must be adhered to at all times before, during, and after the evaluation. In the individual evaluation, each expert must submit an individual evaluation report for each proposal, assessing each award criterion. You will see what that is on the next slide. These individual reports form the basis for the next phase, and each proposal will be assessed independently by at least 3 experts. And after this individual evaluation, the experts will join in a consensus discussion to agree on a common position, include comments and scores for each award criterion. This will result in a consensus report. The proposal will be evaluated against the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Individual Fellowship Award criteria, which are excellence, impact, and implementation. Weighting factors will be applied, as you see on the right-hand side of the slide. Excellence is weighted 50%, impact 30%, and implementation 20%. Proposals are evaluated remotely, and evaluation scores will be awarded for each of the 3 criteria. All of the separate elements of each criterion will be considered by the experts in their assessment. Each evaluation criterion will be scored out of 5. Decimal points may be given. The scores indicate the following with respect to the criterion on the examination from 0 to 5. So 0 meaning cannot be assessed, 1 poor quality, 2 fair, 3 good, 4 very good, and 5 excellent. A weighted total score will be calculated based on the scores of the 3 individual criteria and will be converted into a percentage of the maximum score. Proposals will be ranked within panels by overall score and funded in ranking order. As mentioned, each expert must submit an individual evaluation report for each proposal, assessing each award criterion in the individual evaluation. In case there wasn't enough budget available for the funding of a specific proposal in a given call, there are no restrictions on reapplying to the next call. There is a self-evaluation form available on the Funding and Tenders portal. The 2019 individual fellowship call has been open since 11 April and will close on 11th September this year. The evaluation of proposals will take place between October and December 2019, and results will be communicated in February 2020. The first possible starting date is 1st March 2020, and the last possible starting date will be 1st September 2021. Here you see the number of funded European fellowships in the different countries. For Switzerland, there were 62 projects with Swiss host institutions funded in 2015, 56 in 2016, 64 in 2017, and 72 last year. And here you see the number of proposals evaluated, the number of funded proposals, and the success rates for the different types of individual fellowships. You see that in last year's call, in total, there were 9,676 proposals evaluated and 1,351 funded, which results in a success rate of roughly 14%. Remarkably, in last year's call, the Global Fellowship, as well as the Career Restart and the Reintegration Panel, had a higher success rate than the rest. Information on all funded individual fellowships, as well as all the other funded Horizon 2020 projects, is published on the Cordis website. So examples of funded individual fellowships can be found on Cordis, including abstract and information on the hosting institutions, so the beneficiaries. Filters can be applied there, so you can look for projects funded in your research area or also for projects funded with Swiss host institutions, for example. Proposals must be submitted electronically using the European Commission's online submission service, accessible via the Funding and Tenders portal as well. So I put the link on this slide here. The proposal should be prepared by the researcher in cooperation with the host organization, and the host organization is represented by the main supervisor in the framework of the proposed project. And only one proposal per individual researcher may be submitted to this call. Each host organization must have a participant identification code, so-called PIC number. You can check if your host organization or partner organization for global fellowships is already registered on the participant register page via this link. If you need more information or if you want to prepare for proposal writing, you should familiarize yourself with the Guide for Applicants and the Marie Skłodowska-Curie part of the work program. In case you have questions or need clarification, please get in touch with us. We offer a lot of support for applicants. Over summer, we will give 9 individual fellowships applicants trainings in different Swiss cities. These are full-day proposal writing trainings for people who want to submit a proposal with a Swiss host institution or are currently at the Swiss host institution and planning to go abroad. Furthermore, we offer access to our online tutorial to applicants with Swiss host institutions. To get such access, you should get an account on the Euresearch website and then write an informal email to msca@euresearch.ch, providing information on your future host and supervisor. Oops, you can see this procedure here. And once you did so, you will then be able to access the tutorial via the specific Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions page on the Euresearch website. And for applicants who prefer a written document, we prepared an annotated version of this year's Guide for Applicants. If you are interested to get it, please write an email indicating your future host and supervisor. So, this is the link to the official Marie Skłodowska-Curie Actions website. I mentioned before, there you can also get information on all the other Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. The portal of Euraccess Switzerland provides information and assistance to researchers as well as employers. It contains practical information concerning professional and daily life, as well as information on job and funding opportunities. The Euraccess centers help researchers and their family to plan and organize their move to a foreign country, providing assistance in all matters related to mobility. This is quite practical in the Marie Skłodowska-Curie Individual Fellowship, as there is obviously mobility as part of these fellowships. And all services of the Euraccess network are free of charge. Questions of any kind can also be submitted to the Horizon 2020 Enquiry Service. They are usually answered within 24 hours. And if your future host is not located in Switzerland, I would like to invite you to look for the national contact point in the country of your future host via this second link on this page. The network of national contact points for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions runs a FAQ blog and also a very useful project website. And if you have questions, please feel free to contact my colleague Isabel or myself. We are the Swiss national contact points for the Marie Skłodowska-Curie actions. Our organization is called Euresearch and is a network with offices in 10 regions all over Switzerland. So you can also contact one of our Euresearch network members working in your region. The contact details of the people working in our regional offices can be found on our homepage as well. Now, I would like to remind you that this webinar was recorded and that we will upload it on our YouTube channel next week. You will receive the link and the presentation in a follow-up email. And again, in case I will not answer your question in the chat, you can also send it to us via our email address msca@euresearch.ch. And with this, I would like to thank you very much for your attention and wish you a lovely day. Now I'm going to answer your questions in the chat. Bye-bye.